Morning all. There was a very exciting game indeed from the London Classic yesterday. Hikaru Nakamura playing black against Anand, Vishy Anand, current world champion 2-8-1-1. Naka 2758, not a bad rating. Naka as black against D4 could have played maybe a Slav or a Grunfeld, which is the current trend of most super grandmasters at the moment, to play solidly with black, fairly solidly and dynamically. The King's Engine defence was chosen instead, so this was a favourite of Kasparov and of Fischer, but its general reputation is a little bit on the unsound side, a bit risky, and not too many 2700s play it, like Radjabov plays it still, but not that many compared to, say, the Slav defence, or the Grunfeld seems to have, resurgence of popularity. And there's one system actually which is a lot of concern actually for the King's Engine player in theory, which was actually what was played in sort of a new main line, the bayonet attack system, which is an accelerated queenside attack. So after d5 here, knight e7, just accelerating the queenside attack by playing b4 straight away. So the undermining of the pawn chain is accelerated. And in a way, I like to see, Naka. He didn't do particularly well in the previous tournament. He seems to be playing to his strengths, really, his character, his personality. I think that's important, because even the position might be, to an engine inferior or whatever. If your sort of personality matches the position, I think you're gonna work harder to make it work. You're going to find the opportunities if they do exist. Aronian was in the commentary room yesterday, and so he was the commentator, and it was very interesting to hear his insights about the King's Engine and about engines actually, saying for example, engines think white's better often until they're about to get mated from a piece sacrifice. Then they change their tune, they change their evaluation. So he regards King's Engine games I think as very, very complex and dynamic, and not easy to sort of put a number to. So anyway, it looked as though to the other grandmasters and IMs there, Daniel King and Lawrence Trent, that white was gaining a lot of tempo from the normal kind of King's Engine positions. Well, of course, white's attack is obviously accelerated from the bayonet attack anyway, the immediate b4. But it seems to have gotten a little bit worse pretty shortly after a seemingly outrageous move about to be played after a4. Now, this seemingly outrageous move was apparently scorned on, or sarcastically, caustically commented on by Victor Cautionary in the VIP commentary room, which I'm yet to invade, by the way. I need to try and get a VIP entry at some point. But I was in the peasants commentary room, and there was this rumor about Cautionary with this move about to be played now, which Naka shocked everyone by playing the move h6. And the thing is, white's steadily building up pressure on d6. Apparently, Cautionary said, next game, as if he wasn't that approving of h6. And it looks as though white's initiative on the queen side should really slaughter black on the king side here, because black hasn't got going yet. White now presents another part of the pawn chain to potentially undermine, reinforcing e4, of course. But it looks as though after f4 black is behind, because he now has to play h5, wasting another move when it could have gone to h5 possibly in one go. So the big question is h6 actually a great move here? It's fascinating. Why, for example, not f4? Okay, I hate to put on our metal monster friends but let's just check. In theory, white's better here. H6 was briefly mentioned. Actually, second move now. So F4. What does white have here? Is there something that white has, or white doesn't need to do like F3? If white doesn't need to do F3, so white can play another move in fact, maybe H3. So that's interesting. The tension is obviously kept on E4. The pressure is actually kept in reserve, as though F takes E might actually be on the cards. So probably it's prompting white to play the move F3 rather than say H3, which is possible. If you know F4, there's an option for H3, and maybe, you know, Bishop G4 later if the knight ever moves, exchange off these light square bishops. Possibly that's the idea, to keep some tension going on E4 with this sort of waiting move H6, which in another game of the round also H6 also plays a kind of strategic role in the Adams versus Short game, which I want to try and cover as well, actually, because that was another exciting game from yesterday. But H6 here, what is its strategic significance? I think it's just maintaining the tension in the center. And okay, it looks visibly now, though, after F3, now it's time to go for F4, because the tension has created some sort of concession for white playing F3. So bishop A3, knight G6, so the King's Indian typical rolling attack, B5, but is the black pawn chain being massacred at these various points? B6 as a break, D6 loose. Now interestingly, and afforded basically by knight G6, is this protection of E5. So this part of the chain is not yet disintegrating because of the knight on G6, but this part of the chain is obviously disintegrating, and Necker takes the decision to let it go. Actually, he plays D takes C5. Now usually a King's Indian player might think this is a terrible move, because once, you know, B6 happens, you know obviously white's going to get potentially, if C takes, you know, big D pawn, etc. But I think this must have been technically analysed by Necker, not just from a technical point of view of valuation numbers, but how easy it is for him to play with his personality and preferences and his level of tactical, you know, gift that he has, that he can play these positions where, okay, it seems an important part of the pawn chain has been knocked out. But maybe this is the way to play the King's Indian nowadays against the bayonet attack. You just accept that D6 is not going to hold and give it up. But it looks as though, again, white's initiative is crashing through with B6, about to create a strategic asset. You know, this D pawn. So now Necker plays H5 in albeit delayed fashion. Okay, so B6, as though it's crashing through for white. And all the commentators, Iranian, you know, just everyone obviously thinks white's better, but Iranian has noted like tricks in the position, and you know, Lawrence Daniel King has noted some sort of cautionary ideas like King H1 and Bishop G1, where the bishop's defensive, you know, allowing black sometimes, you know, G5, G3 takes and just moving the king, so stuff like that. But the little cheapo idea as well in this system is if white ends up like winning a rook over here, there's sometimes knight E4 and queen H4 is described as one of black's only tricks by Iranian. So that's to be borne in mind soon, that this is one of the only tricks that black has. But maybe there's others actually. Okay. So G4 was played. And now white does seem to be, you know, asking black to do something about these pawns. Iranians of the opinion material means nothing, because if you're strategically lost, then you just go for it tactically, basically, if you're strategically lost. I think that was the gist of the comment. So material doesn't mean as much either. You just accept black strategically lost, and as part of that, material shouldn't mean so much. So it's about creating, you know, tactics perhaps now. So C takes B, A takes, and and now Naka plays g3. So there might be this idea of coming up of knight takes e4 and queen h4 with the idea of sacking on h3. It's very violent stuff. Sorry, h3. So very violent stuff. And another little note was, if white can try and get rid of this light square bishop, often of course that neutralizes black's attacking chances. White now played king h1, sort of cautionary type prophylaxis move. But now bishop f8 was played. So king h1 facilitates, of course, bishop g1s in some lines. So bishop f8, d6, and it looks as though white's got an overwhelming position. So and infiltrating, of course, on c7 soon, pretty soon, in fact now. Knight c7 attacking the rook. The rook actually does move, okay, but now knight a5, and it looks pretty serious, white's initiative. The pawn on d6 doesn't look that friendly. The knight on c7 doesn't look that friendly, but has white kind of overstretched onto a kind of fortress type concept on the queen side? Is this a kind of fortress now with these pawns on b6 and d6? King h8 and now bishop c4. Okay, so the rook moves to g7 where it carries with it some attacking implications. And now knight e6, seemingly getting rid of white's mojo, black's mojo, black's important light square attacking piece, which is often ready to give itself up on h3. So that's removed now, which would seem to increase white's strategic advantage. Yeah, I'm not turning on an engine for this. This is King's Engine. You can. I'll put the PGN in the description. Of course, an engine would think white's better and probably has some technical refutation anyway, but this is over the board chess. People can't look at minions positions a second, they're not computers, and black seems to have practical chances now. After this next move, g takes h2, the king after all is a target here, a fixed target. It's not going to run away that easily. It can't make a run for it anyway because the pawn's on h2. Can't go to the g1 to make a run for it to queenside. It's stuck there for a moment. The bishop has remained on c5 just in case it might be on defensive duties. Okay, knight comes back to c4 now. Okay, so putting pressure on e5, so tying down this knight, can't move to say to h4, but maybe there's also on the cards some sort of build up on e5, maybe a bit slow here. I'm not particularly sure how the build up on e5 would work now. Queen e8, attacking the bishop moves to d5. h4, as though this is unveiled now, knight h5 to g3. That looks like an unveiling, as well as h3 of course. And in fact it's h3 which is made use of now here, which undermines a bit white's pawn chain, making f3 a bit of a more vulnerable target. G takes, rook c8, and these pieces seem a bit tactically bit of a liability. It's like a parking ticket time. Seemingly irrelevant parking tickets on the queen side actually might be relevant. You can play on all sectors of the board. Really depends on the position. Although the pawn structure might indicate black's got some advantage over here, if rook c8 does anything useful, it might as well be played. So what is it actually doing, rook c8? If the bishop moves, then maybe knight takes d5 would force queen takes d5, which might be a concern for the king side. Otherwise c4 is going to drop. Perhaps that's one reason. So the rook actually comes to protect the bishop. Okay, and now knight h4. Things are starting to look very interesting. With the queen supporting now e5, that's now possible, of course, to move the knight. Also, rook g3 would mean a coordination of knight and rook against h3 and f3. So Anand decides to play king takes h2, and now the bishop's attacked with knight d7. Okay, it moves, and now the rook installs itself on g3, and the position's starting to look a bit juicier, because actually there's also the idea now of maybe queen g6 or queen h5 hitting f3, still keeping an eye on e5 maybe. And in fact, after queen f1, queen h5 is played. So Anand defends f3, is becoming, it seems, on the defensive. What has the queenside avalanche actually achieved, apart from putting pawns on b6 and d6? Do these pawns actually kill the black player? If they don't, then where are the exploitable weaknesses? Where's the evidence that this queenside, attack has reaped any fruit? Or maybe you could argue, surely b7 and then this pawn, b7's on. Actually here though, the c file is another inroad potentially, maybe as a decoy even for the queen. It's another inroad, it seems, for something dangerous. And with this next little move on the queen side, which is again, it seems to be completely paradoxical to where black's pawn structure is. But it's played. I wonder if you can guess it actually. A very interesting move. If I give you 10 seconds, starting from now. Okay. A5. Now in game actually the bishop did move, and I wonder knight takes a5 if there is some sort of special decoy. What in particular is going on? Let's give that a go anyway. Okay. Stick on an engine for knight takes a5. Apparently -4 here. There is a decoy. Rook c1. Whoa! What? So queen takes c1. Knight takes f3 check. Of course! He's going to be mating on h3. The queen is actually absolutely essential now to defend h3. So this work on the queen side, this little move a5, is particularly destructive in setting up a rook c1 decoy. Okay, so it looks as though the position also is about equal now. The engine's changed its tune. It's starting to estimate some of black's threats. Bishop e1. And now an exchange sacrifice. What on earth does this one do? Okay, the queen obviously doesn't want to take, maybe because knight takes f3 mating. So the bishop has to take. The exchange check for a pawn, and now these b6 and d6 guys are crumbling, which would mean, this passed pawn idea is not going to exist if the pawn's eliminated. The rook's now attacked, and in fact the rook is also defending f3, so it's not particularly keen maybe to move away from f3, but it does so. Rook takes a5. So one question here is knight takes f3 good here? But maybe that's inviting a counter exchange sack and rook a8. Let's just verify that. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Knight takes f3. White will end up slightly better. Rook takes f3, and there's going to be rook a8. Let him hold, and white's better. So the way Naka plays it, no, he's not interested in that, offering the opportunity for Vishy for a counter exchange set. He just plays bishop c5, attacking that rook. If he can get rid of that rook, then knight f3 is absolutely crushing. Bishop e2, reinforcing f3. Look how everything's huddled now, defending f3. This one was decoyed away from f3. What a wonderfully amusing, I hate to say. I mean, Vishy's a really nice guy. He's the gentleman of chess. But, Naka's really just showed the potential of the King's Indian defence so far with this ultra dynamic play. Bishop takes b6. So this bishop, is worth a rook, isn't it? Because it's a beautiful bishop outside of black's pawn chain. f3, everything's being huddled to protect f3 passively. So rook b5, bishop d4, just keeping a lot of the tension now in the position, offering up b7. Keeping the tension of when is bishop f2 going to be played? Why doesn't white play rook takes b7 here? I don't know if Vishy's in time pressure or something here. It's after the time control, after move 40. But what's going on here with why not rook takes b7 in the game? Bishop d1. I wonder now. Rook takes b7. Maybe that's playable. Knight c5. No. Black's doing fine. I don't know. Whoa, black's starting to do better here, because where is this knight going? It goes to d3. d3. Another decoy. If it can decoy the bishop in this line, bishop takes f2, and then white crumbles. You know, white's crumbling after the checks. We'll say here, you know, that's again the mate intrigues of h3. So white will be absolutely crumbling. So that's the idea. This knight can also do a decoy for something away from f3. Have you ever seen anything like this in your life? You know, both sides really fighting over f3, and black, you know, in behind the scenes, numerous decoys to weaken f3. Basically, very very clear cut focus from black. Bishop takes f2, and now f3 is finally taken because there's a nasty pin now. So it doesn't seem as though it seems as though now black has emerged a pawn up with a dangerous attack. e4 loose, kingside loose, all of his pieces like defensive. The rook scurries back to b1. Rook g6 now. So rook g6. Okay, why rook g6? The rook was on g3. Maybe it's more versatile on g6 in some way. What is going on here? It's a bit trapped there. I don't know. Rook g6 is actually one of the best engine moves. Actually, rook g6. Okay, it sort of shields the king on the side. I'm not 100% sure what it actually does. Is the rook actually going to come to d6 and d2? Is that the major threat? If we gave white a move, say rook takes b7, alright, knight f6, and there might actually be knight g4 actually, because the rook is also prepared for rook h6s. Okay, so knight g4 becomes a menacing threat here. So say for example rook b6, even knight g4 here is a menacing threat, because taking here, no, they can't take because of the queen. But this is well, this is okay. Just takes and exchange up. So this does create, it seems, menacing tactical threats. Rook g6. So knight f6, knight g4. The rook could also come in maybe via d6. So it's dual purpose coming there. That's the only place to invade via the centre anyway, not g7 or g8, because the knight would be in the way. So rook g6 is a pretty neat, accurate move in the circumstances. Now knight f6, as though maybe knight g4 is a major threat. So if it takes, check, then mating on h1. So Anand plays rook b8 check after king h7 check. Actually, the king uses the rook's seemingly valuable attacking spot h6 now. It takes it up. What's going on here? What's the major threat now? Anand actually resigned here. Let's work out why. Say he played rook b6. Knight takes e4. Check. This is a nasty pin. Check. Black is a pawn up. Say bishop b6. Knight g5. Queen d1. Looks as though knight f3 now is crushing. Forget about just trying to win an ending. So say queen f2, making a space for the king. Queen d3 attacking h3 again. Now if this one's dropping by force, then that looks like terrible. So that kind of thing can happen in the final position. But after king h6, Anand threw in the towel. He gave it. He resigned. Wow. These King's Engine games by Neca are just astronomical. And he's had brilliant wins before with the King's Engine. I'm not sure why some people are saying Kasparov's influence to play more solidly when Kasparov played the King's Engine with great success for a number of years, as well as Fischer. The King's Engine seems to be still in working order, even against the bayonet attack, because if you like going for the attack and tactics, it offers opportunities. Even if white has pawns on b6 and d6, you know. So as this game showed. Let's go back and review this pretty exciting game. Very exciting game, in fact. So, bayonet attack, accelerated queenside attack. Where did this pawn avalanche lead to? It led to black getting rid of the d6 pawn pretty soon, allowing the seemingly crushing b6, but he doesn't do anything with these pawns. He can't do anything with these pawns. He must let white take. If white wants to take, then white takes. But there's things lined up anyway. The rook takes, and there's things lined up on the c file. So knight b5, and now black takes. It's forced to virtually, but leaving potentially pawns on b6 and d6 soon. Okay, and it's here which maybe it's visually impressive, but is it actually cutting the pie? Is it actually doing the damage? These pawns on b6 and d6 here. The rook's moves. It was attacked. Okay, so b7 might be potentially under fire. So that comes in first with robbing black of the light square bishop, then coming back soon to attack b7 now. But black's kingside attack is evolving, and it seems f3 becomes a major tactical target for all sorts of decoys pretty soon. After this installment of the rook on g3 and the knight on h4, beautiful move queen h5. And this little move on the queen side, which has a bearing on the king side, in trying to get some decoys in via the c file, in particular rooks coming to c1, just to decoy away white from the protection of f3. Now, beautiful exchange tactics showing that now is the time that these pawns can actually fall like ripe apples. So one of them falls. One of them was also about to fall because of this fork, basically. Because bishop takes f2 would be a killer threat, undermining f3. So the white bishop scurries back to protect f3. Another pawn falling off like a ripe apple. So, and now the knight's prepared to make an invasion, keeping the tension for bishop f2, because the knight's about to make an entrance via d3. Unbelievable. So Vishy probably senses that with bishop d1, but things are starting to crumble now. Things have crumbled. f3's finally dropped. There's a nasty pin. Rook g6, very versatile move for both knight f6, knight g4, rook d6, rook d2 ideas, rook h6 as a possibility. Very versatile retreat. Rook takes b7, knight f6, and now Vishy with some checks extinguishes the idea of rook h6s, but still it's a lost position. And in fact resigned actually after king h6. So a possible continuation is e4 dropping off, and this position being actually lost. Even though white's just a pawn down, there's a very nasty pin to first break out of, and white seems to be losing a pawn by force if h3 is targeted like that, and then this huge knight f3 threat emerges. This is one way which black could potentially win another pawn, leaving two connected mighty passed pawns and still a raging attack. Wonderful display of the King's Engine, showing the King's Engine against the bayonet attack. The dangerous bayonet attack system is still alive. What a win against the current world champion, Vishy Anand. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.